continue to have policy interventions based on just hearsay, which has been, by the way, happening in the past. In the past 3 or 4 decades, there has considered, well thought out, researched way of even adding generation capacity to the profile that we have, that exists today. It's all been done in a rush all the time. Pakistan used to face all the load shedding that we used to in the past, and every government was in a hurry to do something within the next 2 to 3 years and try to get Pakistan out of it and get the political so-called constituency of theirs to clap for us, appreciating that we've ended load shedding, but at what cost? What energy mix have we been investing into? What is going to be the future? What happens if the indigenous part of that energy mix is not enough to provide Pakistan the kind of energy security that Pakistan must have? So all these things require proper technical information, use of complex softwares and applications that are used elsewhere in the world. Then we've also been relying on growth projections that might have been just a dream for us. So all the demand projections in the future that Pakistan has made in the past have all been at, say, an assumption of 6% growth rate. So when that 6% is not actually achieved, the demand is not actually materialized, and then we end up in capacities that are unutilized, and the rest of the pool of consumers being burdened with that unutilized capacity. We're also looking at seriously bringing in an environment where the tariff slabs in Pakistan are absolutely uniform. We need to give out a bill that clearly states that every consumer needs to build a certain amount according to a certain rate. And then whoever needs to be subsidized needs to be through a social protection program for people to be in for people not to easily exploit this kind of a tariff slab structure that exists within Pakistan. Then we're also looking at, we're not just looking at, all these things are happening, by the way. In the past 6 months, the kind of progress that we've made in all these past sector reform areas has been extremely encouraging. And the people at the Power Ministry and other professionals who are actually helping us, they have a key role to play in this. Then we're also pursuing an aggressive program on the energy conservation side. I think MD Nika would have spoken on this platform earlier this morning. Nika has been tasked to come up with this program that we're about to roll out next month, although it's not a good time to roll out this program because usage of fans would be going down up in the northern parts of the country. But at least in the south it will start picking up. So we are looking at a conservation program where fans could be made more efficient, that could bring down our so-called peak demand by a good few thousand megawatts if this transition actually happens over the next few years. We have a very unhealthy demand curve. So we actually peak out, and most of the peak that happens over and above the 11,000 so-called megawatts of demand that exists in the country is all fans and air conditioners and inefficient building codes that Pakistan has in place. So the energy conservation part of it would really in the long term help Pakistan achieve a much healthier demand profile that could help the policy makers avoid any investments into energy that are not required for a productive manner and in a consistent enough manner. So I'll just give you an example. There are about 3,500 megawatts that are there in place in our entire generation capacity that are used just for about 200 hours or 250 hours in a year out of the 8,760 hours in a year. So this is the luxury and the cost of luxury that one has to pay, and this is something that Pakistan and the power sector of Pakistan can't really afford. So we've also, by the grace of God, reached a point where NTDC, the transmission arm of the power sector, is going to be now split up into 3 parts. We're not happy with the way the projects are rolled out and they're actually developed and then handed over to the asset management part of NTDC and the operations part. So we're actually going to be making another company by the name of NGC, the projects. That will be a very slim and efficient company with very top-class professionals in it. And we are going to adopt an outsourcing kind of a model where the rollout and implementation of projects that are much required for transmission to come into place. In spite of having all the funds available, most of our transmission projects are delayed by over 4 to 6 years. That's very unfortunate. And every day that the projects are actually delayed, it's adding on to the cost of electricity for the consumer. So the 660 transmission line that the Chinese invested into, that's been underutilized for years now, just because the Lahore grid project has not come into place. So the NGC project part of NTDC would ensure that we don't have any such problems occurring in the future. Then the other part of NTDC would be a part of the independent system market operator, who would be responsible for all the planning of the future energy that Pakistan needs to have and needs to buy. Now, who does that? I'll just give you a little flavor of what the situation is right now. So there's something called IGCEP. IGCEP is a way and a software and a way in which these professionals like Dr. Fayaz sit down and other people in NTDC. So they feed in all these assumptions into this software. And on the basis of those assumptions, the software actually comes up with the least cost, the methodology-based requirement for power in the future. So now I'm not talking of the previous power plants that already exist in the system. Now I'm talking of the future, the committed plants that Pakistan has already inked contracts with. You'll be very happy to know, as far as clean energy is concerned, that the next 17,000 megawatts of plants being added on to our profile are all hydel or nuclear. So one nuclear, everything else is hydel. So it's all clean energy. So we don't have anything to worry about in that sense. But it's not on a least cost methodology. So out of the 17,000 megawatts of plants that we are supposed to add on, that we cannot avoid adding on, that we've already committed, this is also excess baggage that we have, only 87 megawatts fulfill the criteria of least cost basis. That is scary. What do we need to do about it? So we started having a very serious look at the future plants that are supposed to come on to our profile and see what could be done and what part of the cost of those plants need to be drawn out of the pool of the amount that needs to be, that the consumers would be ultimately burdened with. So we need to nationalize that part of the debt or investment that's going into every plant. For instance, the Mohmand Dam project, it's about to be completed. We've already spent money. The tariff of this Mohmand Dam has not been trued up and it's not available to the plant.
वफाकी वज़ीर तवानाई अवैस लग़ारी लाहौर में तकरीब से खिताब कर रहे थे। उन्होंने कहा कि बिजली के शोबे की